So, Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm, devastated Jamaica, leaving a trail of destruction and claiming over 32 lives. The storm's powerful winds and torrential rains destroyed homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure, leaving thousands displaced and without access to basic necessities like food and water and electricity. In response, the Jamaican government and various organizations are working to provide support with a focus on mental health. And the storm may have brought on trauma and stress as a result of the disaster. And today we want to be looking at the matter of mental illness or mental health, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. We're pleased to be joined by Associate Clinical Psychologist and founder of Tea House Therapy Limited, Sonia Wynter. Sonia, we say good morning and welcome. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much, Richie B, for asking, and thank you for having me speak about mental health on your program.
It's always a pleasure to have you on. We chatted off the air for a little bit about our experiences in the hurricane, and thankfully we didn't suffer much by way of damage or loss, but it's really, really rough on our friends in Western Jamaica especially. And I'm sure that right now many people are having challenges sort of maintaining good mental health, wouldn't you say?
Yes. This event is definitely meets the definition of trauma, so and trauma can really have a major and significant impact on individuals' mental health.
Mm-hmm. What would you say are the most common mental health concerns that you've seen, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, and how are they being addressed?
Okay, so after a disaster such as this one, a lot of people and we have witnessed that they actually are experiencing deep emotional distress, So you will see emotional patterns such as intense fear, anxiety, tremendous amount of despair, and of course shock and numbness as well, Mm-hmm. Some individuals will be showing signs of what we call acute stress disorder, which will include things such as nightmares, having flashbacks, where it's almost as if you're experiencing something triggers a memory and it's like you're experiencing it again. Some are having what we call a heightened startled response, which is where you're easily startled by sudden sounds or sudden movements. Mm-hmm. As I said earlier, a lot of people will feel quite numb because it's just such a shocking thing to have gone through. And, there will be hopelessness. A lot of people, too, who have been in the situation, as well as those watching it on television and seeing the footage, will be struggling with a lot of guilt, for having survived and not been affected, while other people did not survive and have had such, a devastating impact on their lives and their families. So those are the immediate mental health responses that you will see after a disaster such as this, yes. And that's what we're actually witnessing. Mm-hmm. How do we address them, Richie?
Yes.
Across the island, the Ministry of Health has mobilized psychologists through the Jamaica Psychological Association. And these teams of psychologists, I've been privileged to be one of them, have actually gone, and other mental health professionals, psychiatrists as well, have been going into the affected communities to provide early mental health support. And what that means is that we've been trying to reach people, I guess, just in the same way as the kind of food and support, the other relief supplies that are coming in. But as psychologists, we try to listen to people, we try to reassure them, we indicate to them that help is coming, and so they can feel safe again, that the storm has passed and that their flashbacks are just that, mm-hmm. and that they can feel safe in the immediate future. An important thing that we also do when we meet with them is to remind them that they are survivors. They have made it through the worst, And so they're able to recover. They obviously have what it takes, the resilience to recover if they get the help that they need. So an important way to address the mental health impact is to restore a sense of hope to individuals, and to do that, so far, what the teams have been doing, we do group debriefing sessions. So we've gone to shelters, we've walked through communities such as Black River where people are gathered.
Yes.
We talk with them, we share, we help them to release the emotions that they're feeling, and the aim is to help them to understand that the emotional reactions are normal. They're very normal after a traumatic event like this, but support is available and healing is possible, I think, Richard, there's something I do want to make.
Go ahead.
I think it's important to note, please, that,
yes.
The emotional impact is not limited to those who lost homes or lost their livelihood, It's not limited to that, but Jamaicans across the country and even in the diaspora, those people who are watching the devastation unfold, they're seeing people they're witnessing people talking about their sorrow and all that they've lost. They're seeing the stories and hearing stories from family and friends and so on. All of us looking on, we are deeply affected as well, even though we don't live in Black River, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's important to recognize this. So a number of, for example, corporate entities have been inviting psychologists to come in as well to do group debriefing as well and providing emotional support to their employees, because the wider population is affected in this trauma, but also it's so important that the wider population, their mental health is resilient enough to participate in recovery, because that's what it's about now, that victims can have the mental health resilience to recover, and those of us who are, I guess, second-tier victims, because we're witnessing it, also have the resilient mental health to support the recovery process.
And that takes me to my next question. Let us say we are aware of individuals who are in fact experiencing anxiety or even depression, or maybe PTSD symptoms in the aftermath of the storm. Is it recommended that you direct that individual to a professional, or is there something that we as untrained persons can do to help? Okay,
great. Thank you for asking that. I think the first step is to listen to what they're saying, Richie, it can be difficult sometimes to allow somebody to talk about their sorrow. Our immediate knee-jerk response sometimes is to jump in and reassure or say, but you have life and you have, God is with you and so on. And if we jump in too early with that kind of reassurance, it can shut down their sharing. It can make them feel guilty or inadequate or not spiritual enough because of what they're feeling. So the first thing is to exercise the self-control to allow ourselves to listen to the story and encourage people to say what they're feeling, how they're thinking, and validate that it's understandable that they would think and feel that way, okay? Mm-hmm. Very important to remind them that these reactions are understandable, they're natural human responses after what they've gone through, So that's the first thing I would say, listen and validate. And that will help. And thereafter, after they have, wept, it's hard to witness somebody weeping. But it is important to try your best to do so and encourage them to do so, and that will help. That can be very powerful in helping them to regain a sense of safety and stability, make them feel like they're not losing it and something isn't wrong with them because they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling despondent. Yes, let them say so, and be a witness, a listener to that. Mm-hmm. Also, and then if you're noticing afterwards for a period of time that they're not coping in terms of their functioning. Now, I want to be very clear about what not coping means. If you see somebody crying, if you see someone, in distress emotionally, that doesn't mean that they're not coping, right? But if you see that they're not eating, for example, they are not sleeping well, they are not taking care of themselves, they cannot, for mothers, for example, they can't look, they're detached from their children. So you're looking at their functioning, right? That's the indicator that they're not coping, okay? How their behavior, their ability to continue to problem solve and look after themselves. Then that's when you want to direct them to a professional.
I want to ask now a question relating to those who are, in fact, tasked with the responsibility of taking care of persons, caregivers, first responders, and so on. What are some of the strategies that you recommend for them to manage their own mental health and well-being as part of the disaster response?
For sure. Richie, that was our first port of call when we went into the communities, right? To check on the first responders, because doctors, nurses, etc., they had been on duty for several days without break, and oftentimes caregivers and first responders, they can forget that they're human too, because they're running on adrenaline the whole time,
Yes.
And that's what helps keep them focused on saving others and helping others. And they can end up ignoring their own exhaustion and so on, So it's important to encourage them to take small pauses where they can, even for, a half an hour, 20 minutes, to stop what they're doing, because, they need to restore themselves for the long road ahead, So even to take some time to themselves, take a few, even long, deep breaths between tasks, look after themselves in terms of, hydration, trying to get rest where possible, trying to eat properly is very critical. And also, from their mental health point of view, it's important that they find time to talk about what they're sensing, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, whether it's with each other, with a peer, with a counselor, with another healthcare provider, It's not selfish to look after themselves, It's an important part of their job to look after themselves.
As it relates to resources or services that are available to support mental health recovery in Jamaica, are they readily available and accessible?
To some, Richie B., but not to many, okay? So there are still people who we have not been able to get to and who still don't have access to communication, So it's going to be very hard for them to access. At the moment, it's very hard for them to access the resources that they need. However, there are avenues nonetheless that many other people can access. For example, the Ministry of Health does have these teams going out, they're advertising, where I know that earlier this week there were notices sent out advertising where people could congregate to see psychologists. There's also a mental health helpline that people can call to get support. And I know that there are psychologists across the island who are offering, both online counseling services, as well as in person as well. The Jamaica Psychological Association has, if you go to their website, there's a long list of psychologists there, and their contact information as well, that people can access to get help.
All right. Well,
I also remember too. There's the Red Cross as well, and also faith-based organizations.
Yes.
Are also available and offering help. And there's still a number of hospitals that have local clinics, mental health clinics, offered on different days during the week as well.
Yes. What's your parting shot this morning before you go? What do you want to leave with us? You've said some really wonderful stuff that we really appreciate, but what do you want to leave with us?
The road ahead is about recovery. And to recover, we not only need, physical relief resources and materials, we need our physical health and we need our mental health to be at a state where we can recover. That's the most important task ahead of us now. And I'm glad that we are aware of the importance of mental health. It's an important factor and anchor that will ensure that we can, take on the marathon that's ahead of us in terms of recovering from this event.
Mm-hmm. And, it just crossed my mind while you were saying that. The fact is, any one of us can have a challenge in terms of our mental health if we're not careful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're there or whether we are displaced, the mere fact that we are witnessing it and that we care about our fellow Jamaicans,
mm-hmm.
we are going to have, we can have an acute or a chronic mental health reaction, and we should look out for that and look to ourselves, get the help that we need as well.
Sonia Wynter, psychologist, my guest this morning. Thank you so much, and please have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much, Richie. The very same to you.